Welcome to The Creative Present, a show that's dedicated to expanding your creative self-expression and at the same time, getting your projects done. And I'm your host, Joshua Townsend. Today, something really fun happened. I was in a session with an amazing professional voice talent, and we were talking about how to get to a certain feeling when it comes to performance. And so I gave him one note, and it was a general note, sort of an overarching note, but a very specific note. And then he went off and he recorded this piece of material 2 times. It was something he was working on professionally. And he recorded it first without the key note that I gave. And then a few minutes later, he recorded it again with the keynote added. And we're going to play them back to back for you so you can hear the before and the after. And this one note took about 20-25 minutes to put in terms of, the session time. Here is the first take without the note.
I powered up the transporter and said a silent prayer. I had no idea what I was going to do if it didn't work. My transporter was cheap, so even a droplet of moisture, or more likely a grain of sand, would cause it to short. It was faulty, and most of the time I had to restart it over and over before it worked. Please not now. Please not now, I thought. The transporter shivered in the sand, and I held my breath. Tiny, flat, and black as a prayer stone, it buzzed softly, and then slowly rose from the sand. Finally, it produced the baggage-lifting force. I grinned. Now I could make it to the shuttle. I swiped a juice from my forehead with my index finger and knelt down. Then I touched the finger to the sand, grounding the sweet-smelling red clay into it. "Thank you," I whispered. It was a half-mile walk along the desert road.
And here is the second take with the note being executed.
The transporter and said a silent prayer. I had no idea what I was going to do if it didn't work. My transporter was cheap, so even a droplet of moisture, or more likely, a grain of sand, would cause it to short. It was faulty, and most of the time I had to restart it over and over before it worked. Please not now. Please not now, I thought. The transporter shivered in the sand, and I held my breath. Tiny, flat, and black as a prayer stone, it buzzed softly, and then slowly rose from the sand. Finally, it produced the baggage-lifting force. I grinned. Now I could make it to the shuttle. I swiped a juice from my forehead with my index finger and knelt down. Then I touched the finger to the sand, grounding the sweet-smelling red clay into it. "Thank you," I whispered. It was a half-mile walk along the dark desert road. With the transporter working, I would make it there on time.
And we're back. Wasn't that a fun back-to-back session so you could actually hear the difference between both takes? So what was the note? The note was the subordinate image. See, when we speak, when we talk, when we communicate, and it's based on our own life, we always have a subordinate image. So if I say to you that I drove my car to the appointment, I have a sense, I have an image of what my car is. So I don't have to think about it. I drove my car. And when I say car, then the feeling, the sensibility, the subordinate image of how I perceive my car comes through in that moment. And if I have a negative point of view, a positive point of view, a luxurious point of view, an economy point of view, whatever it is, it will come through with or without words, even if I just say the word car. So if I was talking about my car and it was a sports car, I would have a certain sense about it as opposed to a car that's more like a soccer mom car. Now, it's not as easy to see it in in the verbal world. So I go to the visual world. In the visual world, it's very easy to see. In the visual world, there's a very famous painting where it shows Venus de Milo coming out of the ocean on a clamshell, and there's two angels, one that's blowing her towards the shore, and the other one is has a cloak with her. It's going to cover her up, and she's in a clamshell. That is a very strong image, and in the world of imagery, in the world of visual arts, most people know that. And so it's to the point where we all know it, either whether we've seen it as its original art piece or if we've seen some version of it, we know it. And if we don't know it intellectually, we feel it. So when it comes to a James Bond movie and they're introducing the Bond girl for that film, for that episode, they sometimes will have the Bond girl of that film come up out of the ocean onto the shore and meet James Bond. They did it in the 60s with Ursula Andrews, I believe it was. They did it with Halle Berry in the 90s or the 2000s. And I'm sure there's other iterations of it as well. And so whether you know it or not, whether you've seen that original painting or not, it's part of the zeitgeist. It's part of our culture. So when you see a striking female coming out of the water onto the land, it stirs something within us. We recognize it as such. It touches that subordinate image that we all intuitively know and feel. In the same way, when you see a red sports car, it touches something within us all universally. So really important when you're working on material to make sure that all of what you're communicating has underneath it a subordinate image, something that you're working from that gives it a sense of depth and reality. Thanks for listening to another episode of The Creative Present, and more will be coming soon. Welcome to The Creative Present, a show that's dedicated to expanding your creative self-expression and at the same time, getting your projects done. And I'm your host, Joshua Townsend. Slowing down. Our culture is in love with speed. And we all engage in speed, and we all benefit to some degree in certain areas of life with that speed. We're obsessed with our internet connection speed. We're obsessed with getting connected to someone, be it by phone or text or email, whatever it is. We want to get our communication out. We want it to be received. We want to hear feedback. We want to have that discussion. I want to get in touch with that person now. It's important for us to have the ability, the range, the possibility to slow down as well. And one of the concerns is that slowing down is in relationship to how fast we're going. So this year's slowing down could be a lot faster than slowing down 10 years ago. I really want to encourage not only the discussion and a talking point, but the actual practice of slowing down or slow down. And dedicating some time, 2-3 minutes, dedicating moments, areas of life where you can really slow down and connect. Connect to yourself, connect to the space, the environment, the place, connect to the other, connect with the sound current, connect with the sights, and feel that relationship communication happen. Because if we're constantly giving, or if we're constantly receiving, we will be out of balance eventually. And it doesn't mean you don't go through periods of receiving, and you don't go periods of giving either. So balance, as we've talked about before, is not achieved in a day. It's over larger time frames. And how important that is to slow down enough so that the more nuanced your perceptions are, the more nuanced and connected you are to your giving out of your energy, or giving or sharing as opposed to receiving or taking something in. A lot of times we can be very unaware of how we're giving our energy to somebody else. And part of that has to do with our ability to be perceptive of how the other person's receiving it. And then our ability to be aware that we're noticing it and to make adjustments in real time. Not thinking about it 3 hours later going, oh wow, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. All of this that we're talking about today tracks back to the sense and sensibility that artists need in order to do their best work. That doesn't mean that you have to have a certain level of this to do work that's powerful and potent and well received. It's just, again, that more nuanced conversation about how rich, how far along in the development process you wish to be. And it's constantly changing and constantly growing and constantly in development.